PEP Radio is a part of the Pennsylvania Equality Project that plays music, news, and weather, actively advocating for the LGBTQ+ and disabled since 2024.
PEP Radio, available on Live 365, Roku, Alexa, and at paquality.com.
Here at Gay SA Radio, we're very happy to welcome the Othering podcast to our airwaves. Catch the show every Thursday at noon CAT, bringing fresh voices and compelling conversations straight to you.
Head over to gsaradio.stream to find out how you can tune in and become part of our family. Don't miss it, only on Gay SA Radio, where you are family.
Gay Hive Magazine, all about the buzz of content for our community. Our content is like no other. It's all about being real, honest, and raw.
We're always looking for new reoccurring content for the magazine and regular content writers for our website. Gay Hive is currently seeking sponsors. Email hushmagazine001@gmail.com for details.
Gay Hive Magazine, all the buzz.
One man and one woman join forces to rid the world
What are you doing?
of inequality and fascism.
Seriously?
I'm trying I'm trying to do a promo here.
For whom? What are you doing?
Welcome to the Othering Podcast with Mike and Dory.
Excited to finally meet you both.
Yes, indeed. Okay, today we are talking to Pastiche Graham. She is a walking representative for autistic girls and women that are often overlooked when making autism awareness. Through her new and already beloved groundbreaking children's book, Pia Pistachio Gets a Job, Miss Graham wrote this book to draw a new autism narrative around a conversation that is often stigmatized and misguided. Pastiche made a guest appearance in a segment on CBS Undercover Boss and has an upcoming journey of becoming a motivational speaker. That sounds terrifying to me. Welcome, Pastiche.
Yes, welcome.
Hi. Yes, thank you guys. First and foremost, thank you guys so much for having me on today. It's an honor to be on a very, how would you say, a beloved podcast. So
Thank
you.
Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you.
All right, can you take over? Because I'm going to be like in the corner crying.
Yes. So, motivational speaker. I am absolutely terrified of talking in front of people. I hate public speaking. How did you get into public speaking? Like, how did you get comfortable with that? Or is it just natural?
So actually I'm going to be starting my motivational speaking journey with Toastmasters. And, I find it funny that you popped up the question because I too am trying to relearn how to get comfortable talking to people again.
Right.
Even though, yes, I do seem like, Pastiche is already, she's already mastered at speaking to everybody. But the thing is that, when I get in front of certain people, I tend to fumble on my words a lot, and I tend to say, like a lot, and I mean, which that's natural. I mean, because we all do it, but
right.
I think with COVID, this is going to be a little bit controversial, a little bit, but with COVID-19, like with the pandemic and with everything having to close up, I was doing so well at talking with everybody, and then once jobs ended up having to shut down for a while. And it's also because I'm such an extroverted person, and I really crave a lot of that connection with people. I think COVID did a lot of damage with my communication skills, and I want to be able to find my courage again, and really relearning how to use that. So that's why I'm going to be starting the journey of getting into public speaking again, because I feel like it's going to really help me regain that, and the inner stuff, that inner self I've been trying to find for so long.
Yeah, and it'll help everyone that you're talking to and everything too. So yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
great if you
Yeah,
can do
for
it.
sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
The only reason I can do the podcast is because it's just talking to you. It's not talking to the people that listen. In my mind.
Yeah, it's not like talking to billions
Right.
of people all at once. Yeah.
That's the only way I can do it too. I mean, I don't have as much of a fear of talking to people as Mike does, but I still have, I past a certain amount of people, I totally freeze up. And I would be like,
Right.
what? Kind of constantly. Like, my brain would just completely fry and it would just stop on me. And, being able to find that courage to do it again, because it does take courage. And
Right.
because, like, for instance, when I used to teaching to students wasn't that bad. But in
Right.
talking to them, I could talk to them just fine. And as soon as I'd have to talk to a colleague, I would be like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even
yeah.
talking to a class would be hard for me. I would be up there
Right.
shaking like crazy.
Yeah. it's-
Hey, you know what? That's all right.
Yeah, it is.
We all have our strengths and weaknesses,
That's
and
true.
It's human. It's human.
So speaking of strengths, one of yours is writing. You have a children's book.
Yes.
Is that something you've always enjoyed doing, writing and reading? Or is that something
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Actually, one of the things before I actually started writing this book was drawing.
Okay.
Like, one of my favorite hobbies, and it still is kind of my favorite hobby. It's just now that I've gotten into writing, I'm able to interpret that as if I'm speaking to a society that usually, I kind of feel from my lens doesn't understand me. So I guess, like, with this book, it's definitely gotten me to speak a little bit more. It's pushing me out of my comfort zone, and, not being afraid to talk about me in the autism sense to other people.
Okay.
So when I wrote Pia Pistachio Gets a Job, I was not only thinking about my experience off of Undercover Boss, but I was also thinking about my actual personal experience and the things I used to think. I used to have this ideal about autism itself, and I poured that into my character so that she can kind of heal me.
Yes. And that's actually a great way to heal yourself.
It is.
To be
Right.
able to not only heal yourself, but also to share it with other people too. Children
Right.
that are starting to learn about themselves and understanding that even though they may think differently, or even though you're looking at the exact same tree as I am type of thing, that's okay.
Right. Absolutely. And, this book is really to encourage everybody, really, that being different is okay. It's even though like we all think differently, but I guess, like, we're all neurodiverse in different struggles, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yep.
So even though, like, we're like collectively walking in the same society together as people, it's just so important to have books like Pia Pistachio, who is also an autistic girl on the autism spectrum, for kids that are going to be grow up into the workforce or into, stepping into a career. Just having that understanding about themselves that, I'm an autistic person, but I'm able to my strength is I can work around a computer, or I can write a business, I can write a business flyer, or, I can do this. Like, I have so many strengths that a lot of workplaces and big companies tend to discriminate us for.
Yep.
And we need those companies, those working companies, to really understand at this point that we add value. We really add value. And that's what most big businesses don't see, is that we add value. We really add value to most things that people don't catch.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so true.
And you're right, especially in a capitalistic society that we're currently, dying in.
Yes.
It makes, if you need people to work so badly,
Right.
it makes
Right.
sense to then make accommodations and welcome everybody. Because, yeah, you're right. We will see things that a lot of other people would look over.
Exactly.
Because,
Yes.
each one of us, and we're not a monolith of, we exactly are all mathematicians or something like that. But
Right.
as neurodivergent people, we're going to see things that a lot of other people are just going to overlook. And
Right.
that can be worth billions of dollars sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why my episode Undercover Boss had to air on, I think that was probably the biggest reason why, Undercover Boss and the crew decided to showcase me within this episode and in the segment of, during that time period, was because, this is screaming. There are way too many unemployed neurodivergent people still that still can't even get a job due to being looked down upon and being discriminated out of the business. And I guess, like, when, now that when I take a look back on it, it's like, we need to showcase this over and over again to get it through big companies, because most big companies won't even hire an autistic person, or won't even hire somebody in a wheelchair, or
Right.
they won't even hire somebody with even a cognitive learning disability. They wouldn't even hire them for that. And I'm just tired of this society and their narrative of discriminating that.
Yeah.
And because at the end of the day, yes, we're all neurodiverse in a different way, and we're all different. But at the end of the day, too, we add value the same way everybody else does.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And actually, when World War II happened and all of the men were shipped overseas because they were fighting, and the women and disabled people were left behind to do the work, studies at that time showed that disabled people and women actually outperformed the men that were overseas, were, doing all of the war stuff. And then, so when those kind of, hold on, trying to think
No,
of,
you're good. You're good. You're good.
it behooves these companies to then think about how much money they're losing by excluding us, whether it's, in the store to buy their stuff or behind the scenes to make the stuff. That's,
Right.
Over $1 trillion that they just leave on the table because they don't want to have to do accommodations, which a lot of times aren't that expensive.
No.
Right. And it doesn't take much to value those accommodations as well. And it just really gets me down when I hear somebody tell me that they had to be let go from their job because their employer just didn't want to have patience through their accommodations, or they didn't want to use their time to help that individual succeed at their job. And and it all comes back to the reality that it's because of their neurodivergent disability. All that ties in to that. And it just really breaks my heart to know that is still even happening. And there's got to be a way to change that.
Yeah. Growing up, did you find you had similar issues as to what you're seeing today in school or with past jobs? You personally, have you had issues? If you don't mind me asking.
No, go for it. So with me, as an autistic individual, I was very from the time I was, let's say, like sixth grade, like sixth grade, all the way till now. I was actually very, very fortunate to have had a lot of support systems behind me. And even after school, going into a project search program where the program helps you land a job, an actual source of employment outside of the program. I was actually very fortunate to have a support system that was behind me and that wanted me to succeed.
That's great.
And yeah, thank you. And, seeing so many neurodivergent individuals, that are autistic, whether they're male or female or male, man or woman, however, everything is grouped together, I guess. But, seeing all of them watching me, like, I feel like when I go into work, even in my current job that I'm at, I feel like every time I'm going into work, I'm representing those that are still discriminated today. And that's how I always try to look at going to work. And with having this book as well, I really hope that, employers and everybody will start, finding this story, but also finding, people that are neurodivergent, to to land employment and succeed at it, because everybody deserves a place in success.
Yeah, for sure. I'm probably neurodivergent to some extent. I mean, it's not officially diagnosed, but my therapist thinks so.
I guarantee you are.
And I definitely have some learning disabilities, and I feel like I've kind of been treated unfairly by employers in the past because things I did didn't match up with the way that they wanted it done, or it wasn't as good as they wanted it done. So definitely we need people like you that help to push to keep people like us going and in the workforce.
Thanks. I'm trying to raise my voice a little bit more. And I think this is part of with the motivational speaking and kind of getting out of my comfort zone a little bit. That is why I had this book had to be written, because there, besides, the issue with neurodivergent individuals getting employment, it's just, there's a lot narratives we need to rewrite in autism. And that's like a really much of a bigger reason why I wrote the book, is because there's a lot of false narratives that we need to rewrite. Like, for example, autism only happens to boys, and that is not the case. It actually happens to all genders of all time. So, and I made Pia a girl, Pia Pistachio a girl for that reason, is to break that narrative that, autism is only male focused, so we got to focus on the boys only, and we got to, stay alert and stay present when we talk about autism through them and through that issue, when really it's talking about autism as it applies in males and females and otherwise. And, I just kind of feel like everything in the conversation needs to be tossed in the garbage and be rewritten, because I just think it's really important.
Yes, because, non-binary people, trans people, all of them can have neurodivergence, specifically, autism or ADHD together. And to only assume that white males have it is a disservice, because there's so many more people out there that can benefit from getting,
it's just ridiculous to have that assumption.
Yes, it is.
That's like saying only white males can get a cold. I mean, come on. We're all humans.
And it is frustrating. It's very frustrating that
Absolutely.
we get left in the cold because we don't look like the stereotypical whatever they're looking for. And
Right.
it is a huge disservice, not only to the minorities, but it's also a huge disservice to white men to be labeled so easily as, they're difficult, so they have to have autism. Or, those labels can hinder just as much as they can help. And
Yes.
when you're misdiagnosed because they just don't want to admit that you could possibly be ADHD or have a learning disability, and then they label you because it's easy for them to put you in that category. Now, your whole life, you're trying to struggle against an upstream battle.
Yes, no, everything you said is on point, because that's exactly why when people see me, and I open up to people, because here I am knowing and understand that I'm very privileged in a lot of ways, because I was diagnosed at like around 4.5 to 5 years old. But also, yes, when you were just expressing about racial, the racial part of it, I was, for me being now a woman of color, as an autistic woman, I do understand that I am very privileged, and I do actually, get to have the right to speak about this, because the racism and getting a diagnosis is never okay.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of undiagnosed Black males and women and undiagnosed people of color that can't even get accessibility to that. So yes, I 1000% agree that there is racism into getting a diagnosis, and it's got to end.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that's where our benefits come in,
Right.
because of being lighter skinned versus darker skinned, or because of being female versus male,
Yes.
or female presenting versus male.
Right.
That matters in the hierarchy of things. And it allows us then, the people that can't speak up because they're not afforded the same benefits and benefit of the doubt and all that stuff, because they're darker or they look different or whatever stupid asinine reason is there.
Right.
That's why we have to speak up and keep talking, so that those that aren't able to can actually get a seat at the table.
Right.
And yes, it sucks to be like, because I'm lighter skinned than some other people, then I have to, open the door for you. But unfortunately, that is how our society was created from the get-go. And if that means that I have to speak more, then I speak more, whatever it takes.
And it's really sad how many people don't understand that.
A lot of people don't.
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah.
whole lot. I found that out recently on social media.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have benefits that other people don't, because you're lighter skinned, or because you're the right gender, or whatever it is that our society loves so much, then use it to not only your advantage but everyone else's advantage, because people are going to listen to white males more than other cultures. So if you're
Unfortunately, yes.
and yeah, that doesn't mean that just because you're a white man, that means you automatically are wealthy. It doesn't mean that you don't have issues. What it says is that those issues aren't because of the color of your skin or the gender that you are. Those don't matter in that scheme of things, but it does for everyone else. And you have to understand that recognizing your privilege doesn't mean that you're less than.
Exactly.
It
And
means...
I think
Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
it
it's
just
okay.
means that
No, keep it going.
we have to, show up and keep fighting that horrible thought process of, I suffered, so I don't have privilege, but you do.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And I think, and that's where a lot of people have this hate for talking about racism and thinking, and I bet you kind of hear this all the time on social media, what's race got to do with it, or what? It's got everything to do with it.
Yes.
It's got everything. I want to say that to them so bad, but it's like then like I don't want to risk burnout because someone doesn't agree with it, and then we just get into it. So, but yes, race actually does play a really, really, really huge role in getting a diagnosis.
Yes.
It does.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And to, say that it doesn't exist or that that's not the case is a huge disservice to everybody, even to you.
I see a big difference
Right.
when I go with Dory to the doctor. If I go with her,
Yeah.
there's a big difference in the way the doctor acts than what she tells me when I'm not there.
Yes. 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 See, and that's why people need to be educated on neurodiversity and diversity
Exactly.
itself. Like at the same time, neurodiversity is everything from your skin to your to how you think and process the world.
Right.
And I think that's why that term fell into play, is because it ties in with everything. It ties in everything and it shapes us who we are as humans. But I agree that we do need to talk more about racism and who gets to have access to a diagnosis and who doesn't, because that's what's affecting our society.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
and as sucky as it is, I don't want to have to be, pulling out the race card, as they love to say.
Right.
Nobody wants to have to do that, but we have to, because every 2 years, every year, every 4 years, our existence is legislated. Whereas, people that are white or white adjacent, so to speak, don't get legislated every year of their life. They don't have to worry about, if I end up poor, am I going to be shit out of luck? Or am I going to be, get some benefits because of my coloring? Or am I going to be able to get that medication? And, all of those things matter. And they matter more to marginalized communities. And we have to stop assuming that because they're marginalized, it's because they don't understand, or because they're stupid, or, all that bullshit that they love to keep throwing in our faces. And then
Right.
sit there and cry when we say you're being racist. Oh, you're bringing up the race card. Why? Because our life depends on it.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely. And that is why we have to pull the race card until we get justice
Yes,
from all of this.
exactly.
And yes, and that is why we have to do it. And whether that's talking about neurodiversity, like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, whatever it may be, or skin color.
Because it all relates, just like you can't separate a person from their diagnoses. You can't, if a person is paraplegic, that's not all that they are. They could be a Black woman who happens to be paraplegic, and
Right.
or a non-binary, awesome punk rocker who happens to have ADHD.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And we have to talk about those intersections. How do they intersect? And the more that you realize that things intersect together, the better you can understand why skin color matters so much to everything.
Yes. Yep. I agree.
So a little off topic, but similar. I really want to know about your experience on Undercover Boss.
Yes.
So my first question is, were they very accommodating to you? And I mean, of course, you're not supposed to know in the beginning, but did you find that they were good? They were nice to what you're allowed to say anyway?
Yeah. Yeah. So I am very, I'm always open to talking about how Undercover Boss went for me. At the time, I was employed at Rita's. Rita's water, ice, and frozen custard. Which, if anybody doesn't know what custard is, it's an egg-based ice cream. So it's smoother and richer and creamier, and it's just delicious. You have to try it. Unless if you're lactose intolerant, then we recommend the water ice, which that's always good too.
Yep.
Okay. So So, anyways, yes, Undercover Boss was a very unexpected but worthwhile experience. So, yes, they were very accommodating, and yes, I ended up getting, how like at the end of the show, like they do all these rewards for the people, and they surprise you with like, oh, we're gonna give you $20,000 for this and this. So yes, I ended up receiving everything that they promised.
Nice.
And and yes, it was. I did not find out it was the CEO of Rita's Ice until the very next day.
Okay.
So she came in and the camera crew came in and they all came into Rita's. The CEO undercover was dressed up as an employee named Mercy Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just her way of going undercover of her business to see how we would run the business as if, we were running the store by ourselves. And so I'm not going to spoil the entire thing because there is YouTube and Paramount Plus and Hulu. You guys can go watch it over there, on there, which is season 11, episode 4 of Undercover Boss.
Okay.
So you can look up that. But yes, it was just a very worthwhile experience getting to do that. And then also, if you're wondering if they had to have people kind of audition a little bit, the answer is yes, because they had to pick. Okay, so it was me and then 2 other people that did like an example take. Like we had to sit in front of the camera and did like a take, to see, for them to see who would be best fit for the episode.
Right.
And obviously they chose me to basically take the lead in my segment. And so that's what ended up happening. And my segment was based off of autism and, just highlighting, once again, as we talked about a little earlier in the beginning of this podcast, of employment and how people just bang on the doors to try and get a job because they're often discriminated by big companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, for everybody wondering where you can find that episode, it's on Hulu, Paramount Plus, and I think Netflix might have it now.
Okay.
Who knows? I think, but you can also watch it on YouTube and anywhere you can find it. But it is season 11, episode 4.
Okay.
So that's where you can find it and watch it from there. But Undercover Boss was great. I had a really good time representing.
I used to like binge watch that show like many years ago. And I always wondered how real it really was, how much of a surprise it really was. It sounds like they do pretty much what they say. I'm assuming they told you were auditioning for a documentary or something like that?
Yeah, they told me like, okay, Pastiche, we're auditioning for a documentary, however you word it. But my words got right there. But we're gonna be auditioning for this piece, and I said okay. So, and they did a good job tricking me. They did a good job because I for one thought it was just gonna be like a news segment. But it was not a news segment. It ended up being the fact that I was on an actual TV show, and I'm like, holy, wow, this is real. Like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. This has really happened to me. So it was really well worth spent, and I was just very glad that I got to represent, not only a very large group of neurodivergent autistic people in general that were still, that still remain unemployed to this day. But I'm also very glad that I actually got the opportunity to represent autistic girls and women on that very same day as well. So it just felt very moving, and it felt very good to do that because you don't really hear about autistic women much.
No.
You really
No,
don't.
not at all.
And I just like to say, first and foremost, to the autistic men and boys out there, I'm just very grateful that you guys have gotten recognized in your autism traits, and I'm just glad that you guys don't have to worry about feeling like feeling overlooked the way women and girls have to, because I think quote unquote thank the researchers and the psychologists and everybody that decided to overlook us women and girls. Now we gotta pick up the pieces and rewrite the conversation over again.
Yeah.
But this time including girls and women once again. So, but it felt really good to do it.
How did you pick for your book? How did you pick your illustrations? Or do you get to pick the illustrations for it, or?
Yes, I do. So I got it. Okay, so first, before I dive into that, I want to give a special shout out to my illustrator, June Hardy, who ended up illustrating the entire journey of this first story. And she, of course, I have my original drawing of Pia Pistachio that's in my crayon box somewhere. I don't know where it's at the moment, but it's somewhere in there. But so I created and came up with the characters, came up with the story, came up with the title, and came up with my thank you credits and everything like that. So I'm pretty much the brains of the story, but my illustrator, June Hardy, is the one that took my characters and really articulated and really got it into my mind and how I wanted the journey to really look. So she put her own twist into this too. So she did a really good job illustrating a book that everybody's gonna everybody within the autism experience is going to be able to hopefully relate to.
And it looks, I would love to get a copy because I love the look of the illustrations.
Looks really good.
And
good.
She reminds me of the illustrations of this book series that I loved as a little girl. It was Dory the Witch. And it was what made me like my name because I felt so, nobody has my name most of the time. And finding that book series with my name meant so much to me.
Right.
So all the little girls named Pia, come and get this book. But, and it means a lot. And it's a similar illustration. So I love it for that because it just reminds me of my little girlhood.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm glad you feel that the illustrations already make you remember that. And I want, at the end of this podcast, if you guys would like to purchase my first book, Pia Pistachio Gets a Job, you can actually go find it on, obviously, Amazon.
Okay.
And then we have online stores of Barnes & Noble and Books A Million and wherever fine books are sold. So the hard copy is going to be $32.99 and then the paperback is $23.99. But if you guys need in something to have a better resource, to get a better reason, because this is like another bigger part of the reason why I made the book is because with me being an autistic little girl and looking back, I did not have a resource to rely on to make me feel like I can accept autism. And, now that I've made the book, with this book finally being out after so long, like this would have been an awesome resource to have when I was little.
For sure.
Yes, exactly. And I don't know if it was meant to be, but Dory the Witch books, she was, I think in a way she was autistic herself, the character,
Right.
because she would purposely wear mismatched socks because they felt comfy. And I always loved wearing mismatched socks because it just felt right to me. And she did all of these cute little quirky things that we would say quirky. But thinking back, it was like, I think she was autistic too. But she couldn't say it at that time because it wasn't heard of in women or girls.
Right.
And I think that's sad that you can't come out and say those things because at the time, whatever time frame you're in, it wasn't heard of or something silly like that, because those books helped me.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And having the access not only to those books, to the library, to get to those books, made such a huge difference for me because it allowed me to not only explore worlds and all of the stuff that normally comes with books, but it kind of made me feel like I wasn't so alone.
Right. Exactly. And, and with the loneliness part you just said, that really hits me to the core as of right, just now, because I made Pia Pistachio as another bigger part of the reason why I made her is because, always have felt lonely, internally lonely in the sense of no one's going to ever understand me.
Yep.
And Pia Pistachio, and I'm pretty sure for you too, with the character of Dory, as you were just talking about with the mixed match shot, I can't even say the word. I can't even say the word. But, I know that what you're saying is that Dory heals you, and and now I'm saying for me, Pia Pistachio also heals me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it should do, is that not only heals the adults, but the children that get to learn about it and understand it from an earlier age so that they don't feel like they're aliens from outer space dropped into this thing and we're born from an egg. I mean, yeah, we are,
right.
but like, like a duck or something. And
right.
It's because so many times especially growing up for me and Mike, that a lot of times they didn't want to admit that there was such a thing as learning disabilities or neurodivergence because you just don't do that.
Right.
And, that bullshit. And so many children got left behind, falling through the cracks because you just didn't do that. And, thinking back, having to heal myself for so many years type of thing, is daunting, but getting to start off with the right books and the right language and be able to understand who you are, even if you don't know what and who you are exactly, because it's a never ending, process. Mm-hmm. But to at least have the knowledge and the words from an early age makes a huge difference, because then you're able to articulate yourself better and able to then find ways to fit in better because you have the language.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's another big reason why I got into children's books is because, children, it matters. Like I became a children's book author simply because of that, simply because the resources I did not get to have and wish I would have had like this book is why I became it. And I wish I was, all these things, these positive things were poured into me more when I was little and, about autism. And, for me, I ended up having to just grow up and discovering along the way and figuring, of course, my parents would tell me, they would express to me what my neurodivergent disability was growing up, because at the time I would have been too young to understand it, because I was, again, at the time I was only about 4.5 years old or 5 when I got my diagnosis. But anyways, along the way, as I was growing up, I started, learning that I was on the autism spectrum from being in special education classes. And my parents, my parents told me about what I had, with, autism. and still an autistic adult today, but still, you know, starting off with that, you know, acknowledging to me I am on the autism spectrum and how it's going to affect me, you know, how it's a lifelong neurodivergent disability and what can I expect to go further with that. And, you know, I just think that a lot of positive things. And okay, so now excluding my parents out of this, like this is just for me personally. As far as just me, myself, I just wish there would have been, you know, resources like these and, you know, just more positive things about autism. I wish I could have thought about more about the positive things that autism could actually do for me, but I just did not, you know, coming to meet autism and that sense of understanding growing up. I didn't have that. Like, I really have felt every IEP meeting that I've had at parent-teacher conferences felt very degrading to me. And it felt like, okay, so this is what I understand about autism now, is that if I don't basically succeed at this, the opportunities are limited. It's not limitless, it's limited.
Right.
Like, I don't have a foreseeable future in getting a job or having my own house or getting married and have kids, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, I felt IEPs were a little bit degrading to me.
Yes.
And I think that's a big part of why I hated being autistic, was because of that.
It feels like it's signaling you out. It makes it feel like, you know, as a child and going into teenhood, you don't want to be standing out necessarily. You want to be able to fit in. You don't want to be the kid that gets pulled out of the class unless it's to go home early, because then you can rub it in your friends' faces. But it's never about wanting to be the kid that gets pulled out because of learning disabilities or something like that. Because even from an early age, especially when you have those thought processes that aren't quote unquote normal, you know you're different. And all of that pushes you to then kind of resent being signaled out, because you are different. You don't need them to know you're different, because then they're going to pick on you.
Right.
And it's not always, you know, everybody's situation, but it's that thought process though that goes through our heads. But at the same time, knowing that you're neurodivergent from an early age and understanding it, having the resources, having the children's books and the middle grade books and the teen books and adult books, kind of explaining people that just happen to have neurodivergence and seeing them thrive and seeing them, you know, not necessarily be superheroes, because it's not always that either. Because, you know, for me growing up, it was Rain Man, where it was, oh, you can't be autistic because you're not a genius like Dustin Hoffman's character in that movie. And so I didn't realize and recognize it in myself until recently. Because so society tells you, oh, well, it's like Rain Man, or it's like the kid that has severe autism who can memorize a map and then redraw it beautifully, exquisitely. But that's not the reality of a lot of other people with autism.
Right. Yes. And that's another thing too, that I really want people to stop, you know, our society to really stop doing, is grouping autistic people, you know, aside to one character, or, you know, because we're not, just because you see an autistic character on TV or somebody just role playing an autistic character on TV, that doesn't really necessarily equal to our real lived experiences.
Right. I mean, there are some Rain Man out there, and I don't dispute that, but not everybody with autism is going to be like that. You know, and for growing up, that was all I could see, was that they were some sort of savant and, you know, this miracle type of thing. And even though we're all miracles, we don't all have to perform miracles, and we shouldn't all have to in order to be acknowledged.
Yes. I hear you loud and clear, and I 100,000% agree. Like it gets tiring, and sometimes, and this is kind of where it's like, okay, I love educating people and I love talking to people, but I'm going to admit something is that sometimes it does get very exhausting.
Yes.
Being the inspirational person.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, no matter what disability it is, you don't
Right.
want to be the inspiration. You don't want to be inspirational porn. You want to
Right.
inspire people, but not the way that the quote unquote normals do.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
So I want to
Yes.
talk about the making of the book, like getting
Yes.
to that process. And I mean, how did that go? Like for you, was that hard writing the book? Did you already kind of know it and just it came out easy? And how was it working with like the publisher and getting it through that process and illustrations and everything correct? Was that a stressful process or was that best time of your life?
Oh man. So gosh dang it, if I would have brought my timeline of everything. But I do have a timeline of when I first started, and it was back of the end of 2012 is when I really got into my creative thought of writing a story. And at first, it was going to be a chapter book about some of my, about my life a little bit, but then encouraging, autistic adults, autistic people around my age and so forth. But then something in the moment of that, in the process of that chapter book clicked. And I'm like, Pastiche, I don't think you experienced quite enough yet to really write this book. So let's think of a different story to write. So then I would say about mid 2013, 2014 is when then I got into writing a short story. I was thinking about a short story. Okay, so I write the short story thinking I was going to be okay with it. Then I'm like, no, let's keep doing it throughout the year. Let's keep writing throughout the year. And then by the time it got to like 2015, 2016, that's when I started actually thinking about a children's book. And so with me and my creative knowledge that I do have, and that, I think it's something we all get to control in our head, is having that creative ability to control our own narrative and our characters and the things that we do with it. So I started, at first my children's book was going to be a bunny rabbit and an octopus. And I was going to, I know, crazy, right?
That sounds cute.
I like it.
Yeah. And that was going to be about two autistic characters. However, the plot twist from that book was one did not know that the other autistic character was also on the autism spectrum. So I was thinking of, I was sticking to the idea of, what, Pastiche, let's create a children's story about a bunny rabbit and an octopus finally getting to understand one another as creatures. And who knows, maybe the world will finally relate to it. So that stuck with me for a while. And so then when 2015 came around, because I stuck with that story for a really long time, I powered through storyboards, drawing and erasing every single day for that book to come to fruition until it got up to 2016, 2017, when then I created another story, getting into the process of that other story of another autistic boy and an autistic girl. Now, of course, I want everybody to keep in mind that as I was, trying to figure out what my story was actually going to be, the main character at first was remaining an autistic boy as the main character. So I just wanted it to be kept persistent, having the main character as a boy, because that's what I've been taught throughout the community over time. And you see how like I'm getting the pieces, like I'm trying to like go through the timeline of this process of getting into Pia Pistachio. But let's zoom now into 2024 and 2025. So I think it was around 2024, Pia Pistachio finally came into the picture after Undercover Boss was aired in 2022. So 2023, I took a year off, and this is where the gap kind of filled itself in, because I actually took a year off after Undercover Boss because I was feeling so many things, and something about my segment was not right. And so I had to rewatch that segment like 5 times to understand what was wrong with that. And I'm not going to lie, I actually felt very unease in my stomach, in the pit of my stomach, because, me coming to realizing that Pastiche, this character, your main character is autistic. He's autistic. He's the main character, but you're missing something. And I said, I kept talking to myself. I said, well, what's missing? And then when I rewatched the part of my segment, when they showed all of my illustrations, that's where the aha moment came in. The main character is not realistic. It's autism, and that part is realistic. But every single time you drew a character, it's a boy. And what do you see in most children's books on autism? A boy.
Yep.
You don't see a main character as a girl. And so that's when the aha moment came in. And that's what I felt really bad of having, kept having that understanding that, okay, so the main character needs to be a boy. The main character needs to be a boy. When in reality, Pastiche, you were just on the show representing autistic girls and women, and you were just on the show also representing people who still remain unemployed to this day. And I ended up having to reconstruct my full children's story and turned it into Pia Pistachio, because Pistachio was based off of my childhood, from being called Pistachio when I was in 6th grade, getting me to focus to do my homework or getting me to do my schoolwork in school, but then also being called that, at Rita's Italian Ice when I was running the show, running the entire franchise for my bosses, and they gave me the nickname as well, Pistachio. And so that's when the aha moment finally came in. You're an autistic woman running the store, and you're representing everybody that not only doesn't get to showcase, their work, their job duties around the workplace. You're also basically showcasing this for people that come into the store, into the franchise, and being, breaking that stereotype when people come in and they see you and you express to them you're on the autism spectrum, and you're also a woman on the autism spectrum doing everything. So I think that's what got me to take a year off and recognize where my privilege, kind of like not only where my privilege stands, but also recognize that, oh, you know what? This autism conversation has got to be rebuilt. It's got to be rebuilt from scratch. So I am going to take everything that I have learned throughout the process of making a children's book and making a book itself and reconstruct that story into my actual experience, my job experience, but also taking what I've learned about autism and rewrite the narrative from that perspective. And as far as getting with the publisher, being able to work with the publisher, who I'm still am with right now, getting to work with her and editing the story with her and getting inside the character's mind and really taking all that I wrote and edit it into something more meaningful and powerful and stronger for people to really feel the words and really get inside the story and the character herself as an autistic character, I think really made a huge difference in doing that. So I was very fortunate to even have a book published, and we went through the publishing process through Ingram's Start, and because that's where, if you want your book like everywhere, that's usually how most books, I would say, like most of the time from what I've learned, usually go through.
Right.
And it was just a really neat experience. And now I'm getting to share this resource once again with everybody who now gets to have one, like Pia Pistachio, and, reshaping the narrative, not only for the new generation that is now here, but also for me, because I did not get to have that. And, I'm reshaping the narrative for the general public to finally understand what it really means, for an autistic person to be autistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And I like the way that shut up. I like the way that you described the process, because I think a lot of times people mistake children's books into thinking that it's just this really quick and easy thing to write and voila, there's a children's book. And it's not.
No, not at all.
Right.
Now you can talk.
Yes.
I don't remember what I was going to say now.
Oh, of course not now.
We are running out of time, unfortunately, so we do have to start wrapping it up.
Yes.
Definitely, listeners, go check out her book.
Yes.
Like she said, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Where else did you say?
Books A Million.
Books A Million.
Books A Million.
And where else can they find anything that you want to put out there? Find you on socials or?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So if you guys, and by the way, Pia Pistachio is getting a second book.
Yay.
So be on the lookout for that one. Be on the lookout for that one very soon. If you want to keep keep on tabs, about an update about my next book and events and things like that, you can follow me on Instagram, Pastiche Graham. I'm pretty sure I will give you guys the links after the podcast so that way people can just go find me. But you can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and I guess I can include Threads now, since that's now a social media platform as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was just such a joy to be on your guys' podcast today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
We loved this. It was great.
Yes, and remember us little people as you get bigger with your children's books. And
absolutely, too.
Yeah, I saw Pia Pistachio Gets a Job has some great reviews on there.
And so I'm looking forward to it.
That's got to feel really good to get that.
Yes.
Too, on your part.
It does. It does. And, but yeah, I'll definitely keep in touch with you guys for sure.
Awesome.
And
cool.
Sounds great.
I hope Pia gets to meet that bunny that you talked about.
Yes.
There you go. There's your next book.
Yeah, Pia meets the bunny for Easter or something.
Yeah, Pia meets the bunny. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Yes, absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Othering Podcast by Mike and Dory. Please like and follow us on all of your favorite social media.
The Othering Podcast is produced by LoudCore Productions, graphics by Josh, and music by Jordy James.